What's happening, everybody? On today's show, we got game times announced for some of the biggest games in week one of the SEC and a college game day destination heading to the SEC in week one as well. Locked on SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. All right, we got to jump into it. We got so much to discuss. We got news going on around the conference. We'll get to all that, but we got to start with some game times being announced in the SEC and around college football, but particularly in the SEC. And we got to start here where the SEC on CBS, or I'm sorry, the SEC on ABC. Got to get used to saying that. The SEC on ABC branding was revealed on Tuesday, and they will debut with four notable Labor Day weekend games, including a Saturday triple header. But Disney had their advertising's annual upfront presentation in New York on Tuesday, and in doing so, they revealed the new SEC on ABC logo, and as well some of the marquee game times for some of the big games happening the start of college football weekend. Of course, they've got a lot of things going on over at ESPN and Disney, from the debut of the SEC on ABC, the return of Saturday Night Football, to several teams readying for home debuts in new conferences, Texas and Oklahoma, namely coming over to the SEC. There are tons of storylines, but as we get into the games happening week one and some of the notable ones, few we already knew. Thursday, August 29th, we'll kick off some of the action, and that'll be 5:30 Central. It'll be Arkansas versus Arkansas Pine Bluff. And then at 8 p.m. Eastern that night, Missouri will play Murray State. Two tune-up games for those teams, but we'll get an early look at both of them. Then on Friday, August 30th, it will be 6 p.m. Central. We'll get to see Temple at Oklahoma, our first glimpse of Oklahoma as they become a member of the SEC. Then we get into Saturday, August 31st, and here's where some of the big ones start happening. At 12 noon Eastern, in Atlanta, it will be Georgia versus Clemson. And that one is very interesting. The line I've seen is right around Georgia minus 13. So around a 2-touchdown favorite over Clemson. That's a big one. Remember, Dabo Swinney said, we're not diddly-dallying in the transfer portal. We don't need to use the transfer portal to build a roster. Meanwhile, Georgia goes and gets one of the biggest, baddest running backs, Trevor Etienne from Florida. So just going to be interesting to see that dynamic. But an early start, I know it kind of sucks for Georgia fans who were hoping to maybe go and tailgate and do all that kind of stuff. You don't get much tailgating with an 11 a.m. Central, 12 Eastern kickoff for Clemson versus Georgia. But that game will be on ABC, and many of these games will be featured on ABC. Later that afternoon, again, this is part of a triple header you'll get at 3:30 Eastern on ABC. It'll be Miami at Florida. So the Hurricanes going up to Gainesville to go take on the Gators, and that'll be 3:30 Eastern. Now, look at some of the early lines. Again, FanDuel's who we use. Miami's around a 2-point road favorite in the Swamp. So if you want to buy into Miami with their new quarterback, Cam Ward, who, of course, played at Incarnate Word in Washington State, was one of the prize acquisitions in the portal this offseason. Miami against Florida. Now, Graham Mertz, still a really good quarterback. DJ Lagway there. We'll see if Florida can put up a fight, but that'll be mid-afternoon there on Saturday, August 31st. And then one other, and this was already announced, but 2:30 Central will be Colorado State at Texas. Again, not really a big game of consequence. Texas should roll, but that one is another early glimpse. We get early glimpse at Oklahoma against Temple. We get an early glimpse of Texas against Colorado State, the two new additions to the SEC and what they will look like. Also that evening, it was announced Alabama will host Western Kentucky. That'll be a 6 p.m. Central kickoff as the Kalen DeBoer era gets underway there in Tuscaloosa. But the big game that night to finish off the ABC triple header It is going to be Notre Dame at Texas A&M, and the Aggies are right around just a 1-point favorite. This one is expected to be a good one, and that will be, like we said, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central on ABC. So 3 huge games there to get you started for, as the SEC on ABC. And again, that's Clemson, Georgia at 12 Eastern, Miami at Florida, 3:30 Eastern, and Notre Dame A&M, 7:30 Eastern. And then it continues on into Sunday, September 1st. It'll be USC versus LSU out in Las Vegas, and that will be a 7:30 Eastern ABC game. Now, I was doing the math. I think Las Vegas is still on, they're on Pacific time right now with daylight savings time. So you're looking at USC LSU about 4:30. So just putting that out there for any LSU fans looking to make that trip. You're going to get a day of tailgating, but man, you're looking at an early start there in Vegas. Hey, look, the game will be over by 7:30. You can hit the town and dinner and nightlife and everything else Vegas has to offer that evening. But again, Sunday, September 1st, USC LSU on ABC, and LSU sitting at around a 6-point favorite, depending on where you're looking. So close to around a touchdown favorite for LSU. Of course, both teams lose their Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks, Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, and both teams that had significant defensive issues last year, USC and LSU. But a big game for Brian Kelly. He is 0-2 in these openers since he's been at LSU. Lost both to Florida State, both tough, hard-fought, competitive games, but he's 0-2 in these openers. He's got to win this one. All right, a few more notes. We mentioned a big deal that was made last season. The SEC on CBS partnership ended after all those great years, the great SEC and CBS theme song and all that. But this year, the athletic year will begin in July, and this will mark the beginning of ESPN and ABC being the primary rights holder. So ABC will air SEC-controlled games weekly. SEC games will air on ABC's Saturday Night Football for the first time. This is their branding of ABC Saturday Night Football. It's not to say an SEC game has never aired on ABC. And then it'll include some schedule flexibility, as SEC football games will air on either ABC, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, or the SEC network. No more conflicts with CBS having the game of the week at 3:30 Eastern. So, again, like your best SEC games, and I talked about this in the offseason, and people seem to have forgotten. The best SEC games are not going to be played at 3:30 Eastern anymore. They're going to be played at night on ABC. So I think that's awesome. I think, we're going to get plenty more primetime games. People want night games, right? I mean, you live in Athens, Georgia, and Birmingham, Alabama. How many years did you live with your best games always being played at 3:30 with the sun still out? No, you want the night game. You want tailgating. You want all that stuff, and you're going to get that now. ABC is going to be the home of many of the best SEC games every Saturday night. So looking forward to that. If you remember, Greg Sankey talked about this TV deal, and he said the reach of ESPN and ABC is huge for the conference. He said it also opens the door to put multiple games on the networks in one day, therefore getting the league out in front of more eyes. He said that the league will not only make a reported $300 million as part of the deal, but it will have a larger presence across the country in doing this. And, of course, the league's own network, the SEC network being an ESPN affiliate, they put out a teaser poster for the return of the network, a Marvel-esque poster featuring the mascots of the SEC. And, of course, Marvel, like ESPN and ABC, under the umbrella of the Walt Disney Corporation. Some cool crossover there, crossover branding with all of the SEC teams. So, yeah, and Texas and Oklahoma in the mix there. Pretty cool. A few other notable week 1 games we'll just throw in there. Thursday, August 29th on ESPN. It's going to be North Dakota State at Colorado. Not that North Dakota State's, a world beater, but it's, Deion Sanders in Colorado. Shador, we'll get a look at what they're going to look like this year, if they'll be any better. And then Monday, September 2nd on ESPN. So we'll get Monday Night Football again this year. No SEC teams in that one. Remember, I think Ole Miss played Louisville in that one a couple years ago. It's going to be Boston College at Florida State. So we'll get to see Florida State. Florida State going to open the season in Dublin in that week 0 game. So we'll get an early look at them. We got a little tidbit on Florida State. We're going to hit on that coming up in a little bit with maybe a tie to the SEC. All right. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we're going to talk about College Game Day. Where are they headed in week one? If you haven't already heard, we'll discuss that coming up in just a sec. Well, first, I want to remind you guys this episode is presented to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for your role. And that's why you got to go check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. They help you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In any given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users do not visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional with LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats. You might not have all the time to commit to the resources to, search in the hiring process. They are making it a lot easier for you. LinkedIn has even launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making it easier and quicker for you. Go post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Go post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, continue on here on Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out. And quick reminder, check out our friends at Locked On Sports Today. If you want all the biggest stories from around the sports streaming on YouTube or the Amazon Fire TV app, search Locked On Sports Today. All right, let's dive back into it. As we talked about College Game Day, they have a destination for week one. The ESPN Signature College Football Show is going to be heading to College Station, Texas for A&M's season opener game against Notre Dame on August 31st. And, of course, Game Day's arrival marking the beginning of the Mike Elko era at Texas A&M. All the hopes and dreams that Aggie fans had with Jimbo Fisher there came crashing back down to earth as expectations were not met, and it was a debacle. And the massive buyout and all this, and then an offseason of a coaching search where, for about 12 hours, it looked like Mark Stoops might be leaving Kentucky for A&M. That didn't happen, and they end up with Mike Elko. And yes, it's not the sexiest of hires, but a lot of people coming around Mike Elko. They know he's going to be a good defensive-minded coach. And with Colin Klein running the offense, with Connor Wegman, obviously they can get the job done. But Notre Dame versus A&M, they beat out several other worthy contenders for Game Day's presence, including Georgia-Clemson, Miami, Florida, but both Notre Dame and A&M. Higher expectations this year. Now, the Fighting Irish have a new quarterback coming in through the portal from Duke, and Riley Leonard. Well, where did Riley Leonard just play? He played for Mike Elko at Duke. So a lot of familiarity there with Mike Elko. He's going to know how to scheme and game plan his former quarterback there for Notre Dame. Of course, Notre Dame brings in a new OC, Mike Denbrock, who was just the OC at LSU, who helped Jaden Daniels win a Heisman Trophy. So, again, a lot of SEC ties here, but Texas A&M, College Station, one of the best college environments, especially at night. I mean, that place is going to be rocking. Connor Wegman, who looked good in the Bobby Petrino offense. What's he going to look like in the Colin Klein offense? We're going to find out. But College Game Day, obviously going to have a new look. And for those of you who follow Locked On SEC and listen to the show, I'm a huge College Game Day fan. Just read Kirk Herbstreit's book recently, Legend of Lee Corso, the addition of Pat McAfee. Reese Davis does a great job. All the guys do an awesome job on the show, but they will be making their return. And again, it will be Desmond Howard, Reese Davis, Lee Corso, Kirk Herbstreit, Pat McAfee, as well as the debut of coaching legend Nick Saban joining the cast. And that is going to be the new look. Saban already joined the Game Day crew for the NFL draft coverage a couple of weeks ago. For those of you who watched it, seamlessly fit in there, and looking forward to seeing Nick Saban show some personality here. And, we'll see. Can Lee Corso maybe, if this is his last year, maybe he could transition Nick Saban into putting on the mascot head? That would be cool. But this will mark the 7th time that Texas A&M has hosted College Game Day in College Station. The Game Day crew has not been to Kyle Field, though, since September 2018. That game where A&M lost to Clemson was just the second game of Jimbo Fisher's tenure. And the show never returned to College Station during the Jimbo Fisher era. That tells you all you need to know there. But ABC, like we said, announcing this week, that will be a Saturday night primetime game, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central on ABC. So anyway, College Game Day coming to College Station. Looking forward to that, and should be heading to a lot more SEC destinations here in the coming weeks. All right, a few other notes here on scheduling and stuff. Alabama's week 3 at Wisconsin now has a kickoff time. On Monday, Fox announced the Crimson Tide's trip to Madison will be a big noon Saturday game on September 14th. The game will kick off at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, and will air on Fox. The Wisconsin game will be the 3rd contest Alabama plays in Kalen DeBoer's tenure. It's the first power conference opponent the Tide will play, and will be their first real test. They opened the season with Western Kentucky at home. Now, Western Kentucky was an 8-5 team last year, finished a 3-game win streak, won their bowl game over Old Dominion, so it's not like they're just, a slappy, but Bama should beat them well. And then South Florida. It's very, they gave Alabama all they could handle last year. So be an interesting one there with South Florida. But Wisconsin, Luke Fickell enters his 2nd season there at Wisconsin, former interim head coach at Ohio State. He took Cincinnati to new heights, going 57-18 there, getting to the college football playoff one of those seasons. The Badgers went 7-5 last year, got blown out by LSU in the ReliaQuest Bowl, but they did bring in Tyler Van Dyke, Miami transfer quarterback. He's got a lot of playing experience, and Wisconsin will play their first 2 games of the season at home in Camp Randall. They will play Western Michigan and South Dakota before hosting Alabama, so they don't even get road tested. They just get to stay home. And, of course, after traveling to Madison, the Tide will then enter SEC play. They have an early season bye before hosting Georgia September 28th, and that game's already been scheduled for ABC. No surprise there. One other quick note here. It is kind of interesting. CBS, we talked about it. SEC on ABC is the new thing. No more SEC on CBS, but CBS announced yesterday a couple of their matchups that are going to be that prime 2:30 Central, 3:30 slot on Saturdays. The first, September 14th, will be Purdue and Notre Dame in West Lafayette. Oh, my gosh. I mean, is it still going to be Gary Danielson and Brad Nessler? It's just going to be weird to hear those guys going, oh, my gosh, Purdue football. West Lafayette, you kidding me? Then the following week, it will be reigning national champion Michigan hosting USC. Now, that's a fun one. That's a good matchup. But, gosh. The Big Ten, or the Big Slow, as we call it. Yeah, really want to watch Purdue and Northwestern and Indiana and Illinois play that prime 2:30, 3:30 CBS game. Of course, the Big Ten championship game will also air on CBS this year as well. One other note here, Florida State, they have, it's kind of been perceived they have one foot out the door of the ACC. We know the Seminoles sued the conference in December, asserting that they were trapped in a deteriorating multimedia rights agreement. Well, on Tuesday, Florida State Athletic Director Michael Alford talked about the Seminoles standing with the ACC, and he did not mince words. He said, quote, we're just going to wait for this to play out. We have great partners in this conference, great relationships, but at the end of the day, we got to do what's best for Florida State and look at the changing environment of collegiate athletics and make sure we're there to be successful. Andy Staples of On3 saying both Florida State and Clemson have still been allowed to fully participate in league meetings, though both are suing the conference. So kind of awkward over there in the ACC, but it's certainly worth watching because those are 2 schools that, again, ties to the SEC in the SEC footprint could certainly be able to, if they were able to jump ship eventually, could fit into the SEC if Greg Sankey wanted to invite them later on down the road. So just something to keep an eye on there. All right. Still more to come here on Locked On SEC. When we return, we're going to jump around the conference. We've got some transfer portal nuggets and a few other things we will get to here on Locked On SEC. Keep it locked right here. All right, continue on here on Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Let's do it this way. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch! Around the conference.
And we head over to Florida now as the Gators recruiting Cormani McClain, the five-star prospect, was rated the #1 cornerback in the class of 2023. Had scholarship offers from all over the place, including Florida and Alabama. Ended up going to Colorado, but he hit the transfer portal, and he's looking to be on the move. Now, the Florida coaching staff, they were all expecting McClain to commit to the Gators back in October of 2022. Instead, he stunned the world and committed to Miami, and then flipped on Miami to Colorado back in February of 2023. So, played 9 games in Colorado last year, including 4 starts, and opted for the transfer portal. Some disagreements there with Coach Prime, but entered the transfer portal about a month ago and still don't know where he's going, but he had a visit to Florida this week. And on Monday, CBS Sports said if McClain were to choose the Florida Gators, he would join Florida as a walk-on if he decides to play there. And reading some of the work, they said, some fans might think the walk-on opportunity is about his reported issues at Colorado or his commitment troll. The fact is the Gators can only offer a walk-on spot right now. They have all 85 scholarships accounted for with the addition of Jason Zandamela, who out of the portal earlier this month joined them. So, pretty interesting. A former 5-star would join Florida as a walk-on, but that just seems kind of like what they would have to do to get him in the door, and then they kind of figure it out from there. But also, speaking of the Swamp, the Jacksonville Jaguars could end up playing an NFL game at the Swamp in 2027. According to a report from News 4 in Jacksonville, Everbank Stadium set to undergo major renovations that will last a few years that will temporarily displace the Jaguars. And according to reports, the team is expected to play in a reduced capacity in Everbank Stadium in 2025 and 2026. But in 2027, the team will need a home away from the stadium as the heaviest of the renovations get underway. And Ben Hill Griffin Stadium is one of the 2 possible venues that could host the Jaguars. The other one is Orlando's Camping World Stadium. So we will see what happens there. I mean, can you imagine balancing that out? Florida having a, so 1 week Florida Gators play at home. The next week, Jacksonville Jaguars. I guess, playing Saturday and Sunday, but wouldn't that destroy the field? Would you have to lay out, have all new field for the Jaguars on Sundays? I don't know. I haven't really thought this out, but 2027 Florida Stadium could be hosting the Jaguars. So keep an eye on that. All right. In transfer portal news, Kentucky picked up a specialist out of the transfer portal, picking up Tennessee Martin kicker Aiden LaRose, or Laros, Laros. Accomplished kicker, was an AP first-team FCS All-American in 2023. Previously played at Charlotte, and significant pickup there for Kentucky, adding to their kicker room on special teams. Over at LSU, they're keeping an eye on Grand Valley State defensive tackle Jay'viar Suggs, who's announced a commitment date. He'll make his choice today on his Twitter account on where he will be heading between LSU, Kentucky, Michigan, Wisconsin. LSU hoping to add to their defensive tackle depth, so we'll see where he picks. Over at Mississippi State, former running back Simeon Price has announced he is heading to Coastal Carolina. The former Bulldog entered the portal and is on the move. He will go play for Coastal Carolina next year. Over at Alabama, defensive lineman Curtis Perry committed to Virginia Tech this week. Pete Thamel reporting that one. He was a former 4-star prospect, and he is on the move heading out to Virginia Tech. And quickly, SEC basketball nugget here. College basketball season still months away, but the SEC announcing their schedules this week for the 16-team league with Oklahoma and Texas coming in. And they released schedule of games, tip-off times, TV or the opponents, the schedule of games and tip-off times, all that will come later. But one thing to note, Kentucky and Arkansas obviously going to have a lot of juice this year with John Calipari over at Arkansas now, and a little bit of a rivalry there. But fans will only get the game one time this coming season between the Wildcats and Razorbacks. John Rothstein reported on Monday and the SEC confirmed it with their release of opponents. Arkansas and Kentucky will play one game this season, and it'll be a home game for the Wildcats inside Rupp Arena. The date for the game is still to be determined, but it will be a showdown. That will be a sellout at Rupp Arena. You got to guarantee that. Everybody wanting to come back and see, stick it to John Calipari with Mark Pope there. But Calipari, not alone coming back. He will have Big Z along with him and Adu Thiero transferring from Kentucky to Arkansas, as well as some of those kids that were committed to Kentucky who flipped over to Arkansas. And FanDuel, I saw they put out a Calipari special with Kentucky at minus 162 to win in Calipari's return to Rupp Arena. Arkansas to win at Rupp is set at plus 125. So some very early betting odds on that one. We don't even have a date for it yet, but FanDuel's already setting a line. I just think it's a little bit of a disservice for SEC fans. I know I talked to our buddy John Neighbors of Locked On Razorbacks, and he said a lot of Hogs fans are very upset about it. They're like, look, we got Calipari here. It should at least be a home and home. Kentucky should have to go to Bud Walton Arena, and honestly, it would be a sellout for both teams. It would be massive TV ratings. Everybody would be tuning in, but unfortunately, it will only be a one-off. It'll be Arkansas going to Lexington to play at Kentucky. I think I saw Arkansas plays Texas at home and away, and that's fine. I mean, you want to bring back that rivalry, sure, but like we could have done a one-off of Arkansas and Texas here. We could have done Kentucky versus Arkansas twice, but you do you, SEC. You missed a big-time opportunity there for more dollars and more eyeballs and TV ratings and revenue and all that kind of stuff. So be it. All right, that is just about it. You're caught up on all things SEC. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Going back tomorrow on the show, Brad Crawford of 24/7 Sports is going to join us as we'll talk more with him about his SEC quarterback rankings and much more. You don't want to miss that. And hey, for your second listen, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's now available on the Amazon Fire TV and free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with our local experts. Go check it out. Find Locked On Sports today, available on the free Fire TV channels app. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. We will talk to you guys tomorrow.